Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. Well, I've been talking about moving benches now for about, I don't know, 6 months. Today's the first day I'm actually going to move a bench into the new workshop. Yep, this is an actual workbench, one that was built to be a workbench, not just some fold-up piece of contraption that's kind of one. Actual workbench. Okay, let's see if we can get this thing up in the air. It may look like it's snowing out there, but that's really sawdust coming off the door. When I'm chopping up boards, the sawdust is landing on the ledges of the roll-up door. And when I roll it up, they fall down. Well, now the wind's blowing into the side door and pumping sawdust all over the yard. It's okay, it kind of sweeps the room clean. This workbench is my old blacksmithing workbench.
Now the reason I brought it in is, one, it's been sitting outside rusting, just never good. Two, I needed to bend these eye bolts into hooks. Now, why did I want to do that? Well, this LED light comes with a ring. This is a UFO LED high bay light, model U920-100W. Wattage 100 watts, 6,000 K. Voltage 100 to 277 volts AC. IP65. Got a lot of surface mount LEDs here. Puts out a bunch of light. But what it needs some way to hang it up to the ceiling. And in order to make that happen, I went looking for J-bolts. J-bolts are kind of a special hook. I didn't find any. I went looking at Menards, I went looking at the hardware store, didn't find a J-bolt like I wanted. Wanted a 3/8 diameter because this has got a 3/8 ring on it. I want to make sure that everything fits up and goes the way I want it to. So to get this thing to fit and accept the light, I needed to open up that ring. I did one by hooking it into the drill press table, and that worked. But I thought, you know, I got a workbench with a vise on it right out there. This post vise has been around, oh, I don't know, a long time. It was old when I got it, and I've had it 20 years or more. So I open that up like that, and now I can hang that light from it. And the light plugs into a 110 volt outlet. Happy as a clam. And I just have to mount these newly created J-bolts. I guess you'd call them hooks. There, they all fit. Menards sells these little eye bolts, and they also sell this L bracket. Hardly worth the trouble to cut the steel and do the bending and drill the holes when I can buy one for as little as I did. I think they were $1.25. So now I got a way to hang that light up. This is going to get fastened to the rafter, right to the side of it, so it hangs down just below the rafter. That way the light will come down just enough to clear the rafter and still give me like 9'5", 9'8", maybe 9'8" of clearance. Going to make it so that if the building shakes a little bit, these can just move around and not fall off. So, now I just have to go up and mount 4 of these L brackets to the rafters, and I'll probably do that after supper. But in the meantime, first bench has moved into the workshop. We're gaining ground every day. I got rack up, I got tools out, I got the workbench that goes underneath that rack almost empty. I still have a fairly large hydraulic arbor press that I have to lift off the table and put it onto the hand cart and bring it out here. And then I have to bring the whole workbench out and cut it down a little bit so it'll fit underneath that 8-foot span on that rack, because it's just about 10 feet. So we'll have to see what happens. A little history on this bench. It's an ugly looking thing. My dad brought it home one day. He had a job where he was working at a laundromat, putting in some wiring, and they were throwing away some old washing machines sitting out behind the building. And he said, "What are you going to do with those?" They said, "Well, we're just going to haul them off to the dump." He said, "I'll take one." So he did, and he brought it home. Took the motor off of it, which was a 2-horse motor. This was a big old commercial washing machine out of a laundromat. You can tell by the 4-inch channel in the framework, this thing was built. Also had a nice steel pan. This is the floor. This was the bottom of the washing machine. Well, he had it sitting out behind his building after he peeled off the sheet metal and used the sheet metal for various things. He really didn't have a use for this, so I asked him if I could have it. He said sure. Dad was always that way. Took it home, I got out the cutting torches, and I peeled off all the parts that I didn't need, thinking that what I wanted was a place to mount this post vise. I bought this post vise at a tractor show over by Jones, Michigan. I had just completed blacksmithing classes at Tillers International, and I was looking for tools. And I thought post vise would be great. They had a post vise there at the Tillers in the forge, and I used it when I was bending my hooks and doing my welding for my forging class. And I thought that would be a great thing to have. So as I'm walking into the showgrounds over by Jones, Michigan, hanging on the fence, this vise. Didn't have this angle iron plate on it, and it wasn't painted, but it had the screw, and it had both jaws in place. Had the jaws that looked pretty good, and the bolts were in it. Didn't have a spring, didn't have this mechanism here, which actually bolts onto this angle iron plate. And I thought, well, I could probably put a spring on it. So I brought it home for a grand total of $5. Yeah, they weren't worth a whole lot. This was 1996. And wasn't a whole lot going on. So I brought it home, bolted it to this bench, and I've been using it ever since. So that's the history of this bench. It is actually one of the first benches that I had that you could really call a bench. The rest of them were made up out of scrap wood and 2x4s and old doors, you name it. Since then I've progressed a little bit and gotten better at making benches. Came up with some better ideas. Very happy with them. But this is a fine bench. Makes a good welding bench too. Got a steel top, rusty as the dickens. But you can still lay an arc on whatever you lay on top of it. It doesn't seem to bother it a bit. So this is going to be in the blacksmith shop on the other side of that wall in the lean-to shed. At least if I live long enough to get it over there. If you have any suggestions for new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.
This video is not to be viewed by anyone under the age of 13 in the U.S. or 16 in the European Union without the express written permission of the parents or the legal guardians of the underage person. Such written permission must be on file at the local government entity in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations established by the FTC. Anyone violating these terms is admitting by default that they hold harmless the owners and operators of this channel. Any and all questions should be addressed to your local branch of the FTC.